Okay, I'm Jay Botelho, Director of Product Management at WildPacket's, and it's funny because when, at the beginning Keith was like nothing about vendors, right? But he specifically asked for a session about Omnipeak and how to use it. So it's hard not to do something about a vendor when you're asked to do something about a product. But that said, the whole goal here is really mainly because there's a 1-year eval in the kit, right? So the point here is to make you guys useful with it for that year. After that, whatever you do is your own thing, but I'd like to see you guys at least be able to be useful with it for the year. So that's really the goal here. And this is one solution. There are other solutions out there for packet capture as well. Everything has its strengths and weaknesses. I'm not here to debate whether it's better or worse than something else. Not the point here. I want to show you what Omnipeak can do, that's all. So, and then certainly questions along the way would be good. It's kind of a small crowd. Questions would be better, especially if the pace isn't right, going too fast, going by something too quickly, or going too slow. Just speak up. There's not very many of us in here, so that would be the best way to do it. All right. I only have a few slides. Most of it's going to be demo, but just a couple of slides. So somebody cornered me this morning because Craig did mentioning that I was a cyclist, and no one else will even find this that funny, but I find it funny because I'm a cyclist. But what was most funny about it was my daughter texted it to me this morning. So the fact that my family even thinks that about me is kind of funny. And Pearls Before Swine is great with Jeff the Cyclist because they have some really great Jeff the Cyclist cartoons. So here's what we want to cover. I want to go through some of the basic stuff first about configuration, adapters, captures, how to do multi-channel captures and aggregation, how to do some of the remote captures. Because if we're not capturing it right, then the rest of it's kind of useless. So this part's important, and there's kind of small little configuration points in there that I think we actually absolutely need to cover. Then I'll get into some more of the features, right? And kind of going kind of top down. So looking at some of the network level stuff, some of our dashboards, that kind of thing. Then going down into more of the detailed packet analysis, and then some of the more detailed stuff, things you can do with VoIP and VoFi. Things we can do with roaming, and talking a little bit more about doing wired and wireless, and showing you a couple of features there. So I know I mentioned this yesterday, but one last time, there is that 1-year license in the bag. That's the URL. If you click on the link in the PDF, it unfortunately, I think, has a carriage return in it where it wraps. So it doesn't bring you to the right link. It brings you to a truncated version of this link, which then brings you to the 10-day or 15-day eval. So make sure you copy and paste that into a browser. And then the driver for the AE6000, mine are all plugged in. I don't want to unplug them right now. Little adapter, you got a Linksys AE6000. It's an 11AC one-stream adapter. The driver for that is also located on that Patriot 32 gig drive that you got in the WildPacket's folder, and there's instructions for installing the driver. But I wanted to show you those real quick in just a minute. If you're not doing AC, there is one other adapter that's out there. It's called the Omni Wi-Fi. It's on Amazon. They're $99. They're inexpensive. It's 11A, 3-stream. It's a commercial device. I'll be quite honest with you. This is just an Edimax device, right? We put a WildPacket's label on it. The reason we did that is because we tested this thoroughly with Omnipeak. So we know this device works very well up to 3-stream 11N. It's a Raylink-based device. Again, you can find it from us, or you can find it from Edimax, probably even cheaper. But there's the details on it. So if you're looking to do multi-channel capture, and you're not doing AC right now, this is a great alternative if you're trying to do 11N. So about installing that AE6000 driver. So I'm just going to, if you're not following along with these, that's okay, but they're in the slides. But I just wanted you to see what the steps are, because a few people had trouble installing that driver. So, and it kind of needs to be done in this order. So when you go in to update the driver through Device Manager, there's 2 choices, right? You definitely want to browse the computer for the driver software, the second choice, not the top choice. When you do that, it'll bring up this window, and you definitely want to let me pick from a list of device drivers on my computer, the second choice again. It'll bring up if you've already installed the regular driver for the AE6000, if Windows did that automatically, then you'll see it listed there as a network adapter. Otherwise, you might not. But then have disk, that's probably the key thing. Somebody mentioned the other day about kind of think back to Windows 95 when you install that driver. That's kind of the notion. You really have to click that button that says have disk. When you do, it'll allow you to go find the driver. This is the path to it on that Patriot drive. It'll then provide you with this weird network adapter name. This unfortunately comes out of the Raylink driver, not something that we can change because the driver's signed. So if we go in and change this and it makes the driver look like it's unsigned, for some reason we're the Conceptronic Nano Wireless. That's the right thing. It may act like it's not signed. Don't worry about that. And then it will install. So, and that's the device. It's an AE6000. And it is a one-stream 11AC device, so I want to be clear about that, right? So, and this comes back to that 10 talk I did yesterday, and we'll talk more about it as we start to do the captures, but the number of streams in the adapters that you're using to capture the traffic is critically important, because if we have a one-stream adapter and there are people in the room that are right now sending two-stream AC, don't know if anybody is, probably not, but if so, the one-stream adapter sees none of the two-stream traffic. It's not like it gives you some indication that there's some two-stream out there. It just doesn't recognize two-stream. It just doesn't even get picked up at the file layer in the adapter, in the driver, so it never gets sent up to Omnipeak. We never see any of it. The device itself just doesn't know how to handle two-stream if it's not a two-stream device. So keep that in mind when you go to capture. That said, we know you're going to need to do two-stream.
Would it be, if we captured 802.11n, would it still be one stream 802.11n if you were using the Cisco device?
So that's a good question. It would still be one stream 11n as well. It's not more capable than that. It only has one transmit receive chain in it, so it can't do multiple streams.
So 802.11 capture, do you recommend that WildPacket's adapter?
If you're going to do just N, I would recommend that capture. Now we're also going to Raylink. So the reason there's certain adapters, we do commercially available adapters, but the reason it's certain adapters is because we need to be able to have a driver that will support Omnipeak. So in the case of this device and that other Omni Wi-Fi device, they're based on a Raylink chipset, and Raylink is actually kind enough to modify their driver to work with Omnipeak. So that's why these devices. Now, my contact at Raylink says that in April of this year, so not too much longer, there's going to be a two-stream AC device out there. When that comes out, we're going to rebrand that as an Omni Wi-Fi, and then we'll be able to capture from that two-stream.
I heard that the AirPCAP NX could be used as well.
So absolutely, you can use the AirP caps. They're still at 11n 3-stream, but you can use them. When I go into the captures, I'll show you where to find it, because it's not the most obvious thing, but it's definitely supported. I didn't bring one, but it'll capture. And that's a good question, probably just a good point to raise for everybody, because there's probably a lot of people in the room that have AirPCAP adapters. They will definitely work with it. So if you spent the money on an AirPCAP, it's not lost with Omnipeak, so you can use it with this license. And as I mentioned yesterday, you can also capture directly from the access points, popular or not. There's different ways I'll show you how to do that in here. It's pretty straightforward, and actually, I don't have that set up here because I didn't bring all that with me, but I have a capture where I captured from a Cisco AP 3700, and I'll show you that.
We were just going over this last night. A couple of the guys that know really well. Remote IAPs, if you've got is a way of actually capturing IAPs.
Yeah, I was going to mention that toward the end, but I'll mention that now. So what he was saying was there was a discussion last night, and I had actually had a discussion before we all left, even here yesterday with Peter Marquest. And last evening, he actually got the Aruba AP that you received in the bag to just connect directly to his laptop and capture packets, 3-stream 11AC. So you would have basically a portable 3-stream 11AC solution right out of the bag in what you have. And I don't know all of the details yet because I didn't actually get to see it. He's going to do a 10 talk right after lunch, and he's going to show you this working. So I think the only issue left with it is power, for long range time. But that's probably the simplest thing out of this to work on. The fact that it works so smoothly, that he got it set up, in well less than an evening, probably not very much time at all, it's great. So it'll be a great alternative for everybody. Thanks for mentioning that. Right. So it's pretty much covered, right? So just because I know you probably can't see my machine, this is what's attached right now. So I actually have 3 of the Linksys AEC the AE6000s attached to my laptop. So that's what I'm actually doing right now. I'm actually doing a live capture, and then I have some other captures open. So we'll see those. That's just exactly what it looks like.
So does that mean you have 3 one streams and just 1 3 stream?
So like he said, does 3 1 streams equal 1 3 stream? And that question does come up a lot, and it does not. It means I have 3 1 stream channels. So I'm on 3 different channels, but 1 stream on each channel.
But if there are 2 stream AC, you won't see any of them.
If it was 2 stream traffic, you wouldn't see it.
I'll capture them because I got 3. You won't.
You won't.
Even though you got 3, 3 doesn't equal 2.
That's right. 3 does not equal. You can't. The streams are combined in the device itself. You can't combine streams after the fact. We're not at the PHY layer. We're not doing any of that. We don't do that math, and we don't have access even to that layer of information. So, but the question does come up a lot. It even comes up through support a lot, and it's not often easy to explain to people. Okay, so Omnipeak. All right. So I've been doing, so I wanted to start first on the capture part. So I've been doing a live capture, but let's just show how we would have started that. So when you first bring it up, it's going to come up into the start page. Pretty straightforward. And you'll probably see a blank area in that area where it says recent files, because you will not have opened up any recent files lately. But that'll fill in as you open up other capture files. But new capture is the place to come. And I wanted to start here just because, you know, it's there's not too much in here. It looks like there's more, but it's the adapter area that I really want to focus on. So when you come in, you can give it a name if you want. And then there's this area underneath there in general where it talks about continuous capture or capture to disk. And that is an important choice for you to make right from the start. What that's asking is, do you just want to do a real-time session and not worry about saving the packets to open them up, you know, later this afternoon, tomorrow, next week? Or do you want to save those packet files to do that? If you do, it's the capture to disk option that you choose, and then once you do that, it highlights some other features under there in terms of what do you want the file sizes to be, how many packet files do you want to save, etc. But this is nice if you're looking for, you know, intermittent problems. You're not sure when something's going to come up. You're not sure if you're going to capture it. You can capture to disk and then go back at any time and open up those packet files and see what happened at that time. You can also save packet files on the fly, but so the continuous capture, you can save that, but it's a buffer. So when I'm in just the continuous capture mode, you see down toward the bottom, right, it says buffer size. Right now it's set to 100 megabytes. So I'll get 100 megabytes packets, and then they're going to start rolling off the end. So if I then see something interesting and I say save packets, I'm going to get 100 megabytes packets. That makes sense? Yeah. But then with capture to disk, it'll just keep writing the files to disk. So, and I don't turn it on that often just because I don't want to have to go clean things up later, but it's pretty straightforward. So it's really in this second choice down, the adapter area, where all these different kind of choices come in, whether we use our PCAP or whether we do multi-channel analysis or whether we do a single channel. So all of these, I'll collapse them all for a minute. All of these, we consider them to be different types of adapters. Normally, you'd go to the local machine area. So this is going to show what's attached to my laptop. And I showed you in the picture that I had 3 AE6000s. You can see that I have 3 AE6000s. Just so you know, I renamed them that way. Windows sometimes gives them funny names like, you know, Wireless Network Connector 14. That makes them a little hard to follow. You can just go into the properties.
Does it matter? Did they have to go back to the same USB port?
If they were different devices, they would. But since these are all AE6000s, I can interchange them on the ports now, and it recognizes the driver. So as long as you're using the same device, it's okay. But if you switch between manufacturers, then you need to remember what port it was in. So you can see that I have 3, and I changed the names. So if you were going to do a single channel capture, this is the place to come. You just choose your adapter, and then one layer down, 802.11 is where we come in and choose whatever channel we want for that adapter, or we choose whether we want that adapter to scan. So we can come into scan and then edit the scanning options. So scan is different from multi-channel. Scan is what it says. It's going to actually jump through each of the channels that you choose. So you'll get a nice representation of what's happening on the wireless LAN, but you will not get every packet from every channel that you scan through on the wireless LAN. You're going to get it at half-second intervals or whatever you set the interval to be. So if you have multiple adapters, it's way better to do the multi-channel analysis. So and I'll go back to the channels for a minute. So you'll see there's rather a long list of channels. The nomenclature here is if there's a BGN, that is what you would think. It's the BGN channels. If there's an N40 high, what that means is now that's the bonded. Now these are 11N channels right now, but that's the bonded N 40 megahertz channel. So if you're expecting traffic to be at 40 megahertz, you would choose in the case of channel 1, N40 high. There's no low side to that, so it's the high side. Now when you choose the 40 megahertz. There's nothing special that Omnipeak is doing there. It's really just telling the device, right, to be in 40 megahertz mode. So it's opening up the filter a little bit, right? So it's not going to be a 40 megahertz channel instead of a 20 megahertz channel. So you're going to get everything in there. You're going to still get the BG 20 megahertz stuff. You're going to get the 40 megahertz stuff. You're going to get everything. It knows what the center frequency is still for the management packets. You're going to get all that. So if you're not sure, you think there's some 40 megahertz traffic out there, it's better to just choose the 40 megahertz channel because it's going to just widen up the bandpass filter, and you're going to get more of the information. So that's what I would recommend, and that's normally what I do when I'm not sure. So that's those channels, and then as you go up to into the 5 gigahertz band, now we can see, in the case of maybe channel 40, you see we have an N40, we have an AN, and an AC. So here's where now we have even more choices. And in that case, by choosing AC, what that really means is that's an 80 megahertz channel now, because it's the AC channel. So there you'd be getting even more of the information. You'd get all of the N, everything else. So they are in aggregate that way. So don't feel that you might have just some A traffic and some AC traffic. I have to choose between them. AC will capture everything. All right, so that's if you were doing a single. But let's say we want to do multi-channel. So the general stuff is the same, but in the adapter area, instead of that local machine, which is where we were before, right? The second one down is this thing called the aggregator or roaming. So that's where we're able to do multiple channels at the same time. So I already have one set up. It's here. We'll come in and we'll edit that one. So in here, now you can see I can choose multiple adapters. In that other window, I chose one adapter, that was it. Here we have check boxes. I can check all the adapters that I have. So you can see right now I'm using all 3 of the adapters. One is set on channel 1 N40 high, and then 6 N40 low, I think it is, right? And then 11 N40 low. So that's what that means is I'm now capturing on each one of those channels for each one of the devices, so I'm getting all of the packets. So in a traditional 1, 6, 11 deployment somewhere, you go in with this setup, you would capture all of the packets that are going on, period. No scanning, no anything else, everything is there. And then it allows capability like analyzing across channel for things like roaming, et cetera. So if you have multiple devices, this is definitely the way to go, is in that window. And I should have stayed in there, sorry. Oh, we'll go to the new adapter. So there's 2 other choices in here. I should have brought an air PCAP device now that you mentioned that. Now, if you had an air PCAP device, it would not have shown up in the other list because the driver actually behaves differently. But if we had an air PCAP device, it would also show up in the list in the aggregator. Sure. I'm not sure if I can plug it in on the fly. I've been told that this is supposed to work, and then I've seen it not work. But I'm also out of USB ports. I'll plug it in later. I'll leave it here for 1 second, then I'll give it back to you. But that brings up a point that I probably should also make about running out of USB ports. So I could do more of these, right? I could plug in a hub, and now I could do 5 or 6 channels. Maybe that would help me on the A side. The thing to remember about the hubs, though, especially with the AC devices, is if it's an unpowered hub, you're only going to be able to support so many of the USB devices, and unfortunately, at least with Windows, the mechanism, if you plug in too many, is going to be blue screen. That's just what Windows seems to do when you overpower the USB port. And sometimes it'll then also shut off your USB ports, and then it's a complete reboot, and you got to kind of go figure things out. So if you're going to have, we've always found at least 2 of any sort of devices on a hub works fine. I've never seen Windows have problems with that. 3 devices on an unpowered USB hub depends on the hub. I've seen some hubs handle that, and I've seen other hubs kind of just, crash the USB port every time. So it's just something to keep in mind. You can use the little battery-operated hubs. It's not like you need to have some big clunky thing that you have to plug in. Those battery-operated ones, they supply enough power. They're great. But keep that in mind if you use a hub. But it's great because you can really expand things. Maybe you don't have many USB ports to begin with. You've got other things plugged in. You've only got 1 port, but you want to do 3 channels. Get a little battery-operated hub, and things will be great. So the Hierarchical app would show there. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was we still talked about capturing from the access point sometimes. Should you want to do that, you'll see there's a button here, Create RPCAP Interfaces. So this is one of the 2 methods we have for capturing from access points. So we support remote PCAP. And remote PCAP is something that's built into the PCAP libraries. Most access points, have it in there somewhere. Whether or not they expose it, either through the UI or through the CLI, is still in question. You should ask the access point manufacturers.
Is it the same thing as the Cisco remote adapter or the Aruba remote adapter?
No, I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. There's a difference between the remote PCAP adapter and the remote adapters, and that's a good question. The remote PCAP, again, is it's quote a standard. So we do nothing special about this. We just say we support remote PCAP, and then if an access point supports remote PCAP, then nothing else special needs to be done. You'd be able to click that button, and then all you need to do is you fill in the host IP address where that access point is. It opens it up on port 2002. If there's any authentication credentials, you fill that in, and you can even do filtering along the way with BPF filter commands to filter the data that comes through. When you click Get Interfaces, it'll bring you a list of the interfaces from that access point that are available for capture. So it's really quite straightforward. RPCAP does the communication.
Does Cisco and Aruba support RPCAP off the top of the head?
So the question was, does Cisco and Aruba support the RPCAP? And I'm not sure. Again, if you need to ask them, or we can go back and ask. But yeah, and the reason we don't know about those is because in the case of Cisco and Aruba, we actually work with them to build a separate tunnel. That's what the remote adapters are. So remote PCAP anybody could do.
Is it more preferred if you have Cisco or Aruba, you use the remote adapter than to use the remote PCAP?
Only because we know that it's been tested, right? So yeah, if you knew that, then I would do that, because certainly in our own QA group, we're QAing the Cisco remote adapter and the Aruba remote adapter. If it's RPCAP, we've tested it against a representative access point or 2, but we may not have tested it against every access point that supports it. So that was that. So lastly, that was that last area back in the adapter. So we covered local machine, right? I know this is taking a while, but this part's important. And then we covered the aggregator. And then lastly, it's this area where we have the Cisco and Aruba remote adapters. So in these cases, it's pretty similar, right? You just go in and set a new remote adapter. And really, there's actually nothing you really need to do from the WildPacket's side of this. Really, all the configuration here would be done through the wireless LAN controller. You'd go into the wireless LAN controller for the Aruba or the Cisco access point. You would take the access point in question, or access points in question. It can be multiple. You would actually put them in sniffer mode. They all have a little checkbox in there for the mode of the access point. Put it in sniffer, and then find the spot in the UI where, once it's in sniffer mode, you put in the IP address where you want it to send the packets, and that would be the address of wherever Omnipeak is running, and it would then just forward the packets. Every one of the APs would forward the packets to Omnipeak to run. So the remote adapters are really kind of slick in that regard. It does, in the case of Cisco and Aruba today, those access points become sniffers, and then they're not access points. So there is that downside to it. That's why if you were going to follow that approach, you can dedicate an access point as a sensor, or if it's a situation where you know there's enough overlap, and you can take an access point that's not currently involved in the problem, but use it as a sensor. Take that one and use it as a sensor. Maybe it's one that's adjacent to the client and the access point that are communicating. You'd capture all of that traffic. So it's just an alternative. I know yesterday it created a bit of a hubbub. It's an alternative. It's not. You don't have to do it that way. So it's just a third way to capture. So that's pretty much about all of the capturing. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything that I wanted to say about that.
The remote capture that you worked on with Aruba and Cisco, do you document or they document?
So we document it, and actually, I could show you a quick video, but I replayed it yesterday, and I realized that I don't know what I was saying when I did it, because I played it back without the sound, and it was really slow in terms of going through the steps. But it's on our website. You can just on the website, just click, search any of the Cisco or Aruba remote adapter. It'll bring you to the video. It's about 2 minutes, and it shows you, at least in the case of Cisco, exactly where these configuration points are. That's the only thing that's a little confusing, because it's a little hard to find where to put the access point in sniffer modes. Those wireless LAN controller UIs can kind of have a lot of, there's a lot of things to click on and a lot of places to find things. So the video's a good way to start that. And I can show it at the end if we have time and we're interested. So a lot about capturing, but okay. So I've been doing a capture all along. So things to look at on this page. So this is our Compass dashboard. It's the place that I normally start when I'm working with Omnipeak, because it gives a nice overall view of what's going on the network, and there's a lot of options in here. So I'm going to go through just some of them, because there's some things that are important about it, and just important to know and to be able to find. It'll make life a lot easier. So again, I've been capturing all three of those channels at the same time. You can see up just in the top corner, packets received, packets filtered. I'm not doing any filtering, so that's just what's coming in packet-wise. Right next to that, you see that buffer usage. So earlier, there was the question about if I'm just doing continuous capture, what happens? Well, that bar that says 100% now means that I have filled my 100 megabyte buffer, and now packets are just rolling in and off out the end. In terms of the analysis that you see, it's analyzed all of the packets, but I only have the last 100 megabytes of packets. Should I want to go do something like decode a packet, right? Look at an individual specific packet, that's what I have. But the stats reflect everything that's been going on since I started that capture. So in this dashboard, there's a number of different views you can see. So the first view is just a view where we can graph things that have been going on. And we have many choices in the graphing area. Right now we're graphing megabits per second, but we could be graphing bytes or packets themselves, or in some cases latency. We can graph response time, signal noise, data rate. All of these are choices. So, and it's probably going to be a little slow now because of the capture. So I'm going to stop the aggregator for now. I forgot what I was going to say. So it's a good question. The question was, how do we get to the view? All of the controls are in the left-hand navigation board. So under dashboards, Compass, that's where we are right now. So we're in that Compass view. You can see it's any of these other views. There's a network view. This is some of our, but Compass view really gives you the most kind of flexibility as to what's going on. So And you'll notice some of these choices in here, they may not apply all the time. So there were choices like, signal and noise and those types of things. Those are only in wireless. Of course, this also does wired. You wouldn't have that in the wired choice. Omnipeak supports wired and wireless. I could start a separate wired capture at the same time, but in a single capture, we can't capture wired and wireless in the same capture because it does some different analysis, right? It's expecting 802.11 frames, or it's expecting, but you can start. And that's normally what people would do, right? I'd start a wireless capture, and then I would start a wired capture on the backside of the AP. And I'm going to show you in a little later on with a stored file how you can even compare the two files. So I remember what I wanted to say. In the case of the graph, there's a lot going on in this graph, and there's certain things like signal strength where so we'll go graph signal strength, right? And then you'll notice that there's a choice for average, okay? And average signal strength is not really going to make a lot of sense right now, right? So because I'm averaging it across every client, every access point, doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I apologize that it's slowed down so much. So in that case, average might still make sense, but this is one of the nice flexible things about Compass is, once you pick a view like signal strength, and it's going to do a weird job of things on me now, you can come in and pick a particular node, or pick a particular node, and then once you pick that node, you'll then see the signal strength for just that particular node. So up here we can get rid of the average, so we don't see that, and then we would just see the signal strength for the particular node that we picked, and we see then it was only active at a certain period of time. So for certain things that you're going to graph, it's quite important to think about whether it's average or not, and then think about if it is average, what am I averaging across? Because there's really a lot of flexibility in this dashboard, and that's just one of the things to be aware of. So. That's signal, and then we also, of course, have noise in there, and then our expert events. So expert events are analyses that go on. Let's get rid of the. So yes, okay. So all that further down, right down toward the bottom, you see channels, VLAN flows. So all these kind of add another view. So and then you can unpin them here. So if I don't really want the wireless LAN view anymore, just unpin the wireless LAN view, and that one will go away, and I'll wind up with the other three. So.
Click on the right side, channels, VLAN, WLAN, this one down, this one nodes.
Did that make? Yeah. Okay. And when you hover over one, which is also a little confusing, it'll bring it up, and then when you hover away, it'll go away. So if you just want to look at it for a minute, you can do that. And that's what one of the nice things. So right now we're looking at signal, but let's say it's something different. Let's say we want to analyze something like the data rate. So we'll come back up and just pick data rate. And again, that might not make sense, an average across everything, but you might want to see the data rate for a particular channel. Let's say I want to see the data rate. I do see that there's some 11N traffic. So let's say I just want to see the overall data rate for. Oops, I just moved my channels around me. For a particular channel, then I can come in and do that. Click. And wait. And then I can see the data rate just on that channel. So let me get rid of some of this other, get rid of the experts for a minute. And at any time, which is another nice thing about Compass, this bar is something that I can move around, so I can drag the bar to another spot, and as I do that, everything, the top nodes, the top flows, the top protocols will change to reflect just that slice in time. So if you were to see, a spike somewhere or, a dip, like we see a little dip right here, we zoom in on that dip, and then everything below will reflect that. So nice for kind of zooming in and things like that. So see the data rates. We can see just a lot of flexibility in that Compass dashboard in terms of the things that you can see. So earlier, just a second ago, I had up those expert events as well. I'm going to talk some more about these. But what expert events are is it's basically a whole bunch of analyses, several hundred different types of analyses that we're doing on the network in the background all the time. And then we can do alarms and alerts, et cetera, on the basis of the expert events. And I can also see them in Compass. And when I click on this little exclamation mark, it brings up the dialog box with those, and then again checkboxes, so I can click where these are happening, and then once I click on it, it'll show me in time all the spots where I'm seeing that expert event. So you can see the data link errors, we're getting quite a few of those. We'll go to this one where we only have 9 of them, and we can see exactly where they've happened in time. So again, then you can use the bar, slide around, see where they are, and get to the detailed information. It's all the way to the right. You don't have it.
The last one I have is the X. I got the exclamation point, then the X, but I don't have the...
So this could be an 8.0 feature, because I'm actually running an engineering build of 8.0. Maybe we didn't add this in 7.9. I've kind of lost track of that. So it may not be in the version that you have. My apologies for that. This is something that we're working on right now, so sorry. It will be in 8.0, which you'll also be able to upgrade to when it comes out. So, and that'll probably be in April or May. So you will see this in April or May. And it also brings up one other interesting point, which is, and I should have told you this up front because I am into full disclosure. I'm actually running Omnipeak Enterprise. There are different flavors of Omnipeak. There's Basic, which I wouldn't recommend, and then Pro and Enterprise. Whatever has is Pro. The only real difference between Pro and Enterprise, and I will show you this feature, is around VoiceOverIP. Enterprise does some additional VoiceOverIP analysis that you don't get in Pro, but that's really the only real difference, besides things like these new features that I didn't realize weren't in the last version. So again, my apologies for that, but you will see that. I think right now you do have those buttons right there, right? The informational and the other exclamation point, right? Those are in there. Yeah. So if you click on those, they should bring up all those little tick marks for that particular area. So I'll get rid of mine, get rid of this one, right? And they may not all the time, but usually what happens is if you click on one of them and then you zoom in on that area, then you'll get to see them come up. Like if there's too many, it won't show them because it would just kind of be this blob of color. But if you really narrow in on a point of time where some of those experts are, then you should be able to see them. It might be so dense that you're not able to see them, but that's the way that is supposed to work. Some of the other buttons that are in here that are kind of important is one of the nice things that Compass can allow you to do is it can be an area to zoom in on certain packets right off the bat. So if you want to do some more detailed analysis on some packets, the nice thing to be able to do is like right now we've filtered it down to just channel 1, and 40 high, and let's say we want to pick on a particular node. So actually, let me see what we have here. So the other button I've been going back and forth to, just so that you guys know that's important, is kind of this third button in. That brings up the little key on the side, and this is kind of convenient for doing things like getting rid of the average, getting rid of nodes you've already seen. So you see right now we're looking at a particular node and a particular channel, and this little button right here is clicked. And what this is it's a logical AND. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, let's go get the packets right now. I want to go look at the packets, jump right in. And so I'll click on that little, none match. Okay, so let's pick a different node.
I don't have those two buttons, the 1823 and 9170. I just have the one from 1959 and 159. Like those first two. Right.
So, Those are all experts, just the different level of experts, whether they're informational or so
You do like a 10-second capture or something.
you might not have gotten any of those experts.
Okay.
Right. So that one didn't work. So let's logical and let's get rid of the channel. Maybe he's not on that channel. Okay, there's got to be packets for that guy. Oh, okay. So what probably happened is, and I'm falling into the trap of my own thing, those packets could have rolled off the back end because of the buffer. So, but it does make a great way for filtering. Maybe there should be things like there should be probe responses or probe requests in there. Let's make this something that we can read. So. That guy. All right. Well, we're not sure why that's not doing it, but it's a great way to be able to go back and filter packets, and I'll figure this out in a little bit. So that's most of the Compass dashboard. So it's really able to kind of lay things out for you, in a very kind of more detailed way. Some of the other views, one of the views that I use a lot is the wireless LAN view. In the wireless LAN view, it's just going to give us a list of all of the networks that are out there, and then in any one of them we can zoom in. We're on Hilton's Honors meeting, and then we can see all of the APs associated with there, and then we can see all of the different clients that are associated, and get the stats for each one of those, how they're connected, what they're using, channels, how many bytes, signals. Any one of these cases, if we're not seeing a column that you think you want to see, you can just right-click on the column, and we can see all of the other columns that you can turn on in this particular view. So it just gives you a hierarchical view of everything that's going on. One of the other features that come up often in Omnipeak is it's great in any case. We can always right-click if we want to isolate somebody. So we want to isolate that particular client. Select related packets. This is kind of a just a workflow kind of button in here that is always very, very useful, right? So we can say we want to select related packets just by that particular source. We know that's a particular client that we want to isolate. So it's very straightforward. I don't want to get rid of the rest of my data. I'm just going to copy them into a new window, and voila, I do that, and now I've isolated that client. And the nice thing is, once I've isolated that client, I can go back to all my other views. So I've isolated that client, I can go back to Compass for that client, and now I'm going to see just data for that client. So if because sometimes in capturing packets, part of it is you do almost see too much data. There's too much there, you're a little confused, so it's easy to isolate.
So like, for example, if you were capturing channel 11 and there was overlap between two APs on channel 11, you could use this to focus on one BSS ID.
Correct. It's select related on that BSS ID, and then you just isolate that particular BSS ID.
How sensitive is it? Like, does it no discriminate that if one signal is a lot weaker than the other, it just gets everything?
So it's going to pick up every packet that it can. So as long as the driver is handing Omnipeak up a packet, we're going to show you that packet just as if it was there. So I mean, if there's overlap, but we can see it, and and they're not overlapped in time. So if the packets are coming at exactly the same time, the device isn't even going to be able to pick them up, right? That's back to that the 10 talk about the interference, right? The signals interfere with each other in the air. Well, no, they don't. They all exist in the air, but the ability of the adapter to actually receive them, that's where that collision comes into effect. Right, but if the device picks them up, they'll get reported in Omnipeak.
And what about, you mentioned the enterprise supporting VoiceOverIP, but how do you deal with that with the enterprise network using like 802.1 action network encryption? Because then you have to look at the payload to
So in the voice over IP, we actually do. There's two levels of analysis that we do there. So first of all, we know the RTP packets regardless, so that's not a problem, even if they're encrypted.
By what attributes, like the size?
Well, because even if they're encrypted, the header's not going to be encrypted, right? So we can tell from headers.
But it should be, because RTP is like layer above the IP.
Well, yeah, no, we could, but yeah, and I have to go back and think about that. But we can definitely still see all those RTP packets. So because the same thing even is true on the wired side. If there's encryption on the wired side, you know, it's anything else we can see. So. Now, you know, where the encryption does come into play, like, so, you know, another view here is this applications view. So I can come into that, again, that expert area, and, let me go back to one where there's actually something, not that selection. If I come into the applications view, it's just so wireless LAN, I've switched again this navigation now to applications. This is going to break down all of the packet traffic for me, but it's going to break it down by application, right? Now, if we were using encryption, this view is typically very sparse. Right, because all I can see is basically some of the management traffic that's going on. I can't tell what's HTTP and what's not. So now we can decrypt as well, but only for pre-shared keys. So WPA2, WPA2 pre-shared key. There's only two things you need to know. You need to know the key, the shared key, and you put that into Omnipeak, and you then need to capture the 4 packets in the ePOL handshake. So if you go in and you just start a capture where there's a bunch of encrypted traffic, even though you've put in the key, you're not going to start decrypting everything there because you need to have captured the private part of the key, you know, as part of the ePOL exchange to be able to get that to decrypt. So, you know, a lot of times if you really needed to do that, you might go and recycle that AP to get people to reconnect so that you can capture the packets. Or if it's a particular client like an iPhone, just, you know, have that iPhone disconnect and reconnect to the Wi-Fi network, and then you'd be able to pick up the ePOL key exchange. But that's important, and that's kind of a, you know, it's a question that comes up a lot in support because people wonder how that's working or why that isn't working, and that's typically why it's not working. It's, again, not anything that we can really do with Omnipeak. It's just kind of a matter of the way, you know, the way this protocol is working. You need to kind of be able to capture things in that order. You need to be able to get those ePOL keys. And you can always tell if you did, because as part of the capture, you know, if we come down to, I'll change views on you again, if we come down to a views like our protocols view, you know, you'll see, we may not have any in here now, but you'll see somewhere in here ePOL. And you can do just like we did before. You can say, okay, you know, okay, so the authentication, I want to go select the related packets. So I can select the related packets just based on authentication, and then, you know, I'd see just those packets come up in my packet view. So you'd always know if you caught them all. The select related is definitely kind of really truly your friend when you're doing anything, and it really helps to isolate things a tremendous amount. So, you know, back in the applications area for 1 minute, one of the other things that I was mentioning earlier, you know, was the expert events themselves. So we saw them a little bit in Compass, but in the application we see them as well. So any of the tabs underneath this expert area, the bottom panel will always list any expert events. Now, in wireless, a lot of times it's not related to a particular flow, so the clicking isn't there. But in some of the higher level stuff, like we did pick up obviously some VoIP packets, and we have something where it's not marked for QoS. So I can click on the expert event, and it will instantly bring me in this top view. It happened quick, you may not notice, but it instantly brought me in that top view to the flow where those packets were not marked for QoS. So, you know, again, from a you know, an end user from your own use perspective, this can very quickly bring you to where the problems are, at least bring you to where the indications of the problem areas are, right, without a lot of searching around. Now, like I said, you might click on a few and go, well, it didn't do that. Well, some of them aren't related to a particular flow, especially a lot of the wireless stuff, right? Too many retransmissions, it may not be from a particular flow. That's counting all retransmissions, so it's not going to go to a particular flow. But many of the analysis, especially for the higher layer stuff, is going to bring you to a particular flow. Low server to client throughput, same thing. It'll take you exactly to where those flows are. And again, once you get to that flow, so let's say then you want to see more detail or analyze those packets, it's great. You can do the right click, right, and then say, I want to select related packets. Or if you want to just see a timing diagram of just that flow, you can double click there, and what it would bring up is our packet visualizer, and it'll show you a bounce diagram for just that flow. So it said that, there was some timing off in that flow. We can come into that flow, and we'll see exactly what's going on. So you can just, again, see packet by packet all the way down, and you can see, where some of those experts come in, right? Some weak signals, some too many retries there, et cetera. So it's an extremely clickable interface, and it's kind of important to take advantage of that, to be able to get to these different levels. So that was kind of the web area. Let me go back to some of the files that I had open. So,
Are you able to show a peek into what you can do with voice and video?
yeah, I'll do that one next then. Yeah, I'll do that one next. So now I'm back to stored packet files. And I'm sorry for the slowness originally. The only thing that I will say is that one view that we had, which is the Compass view, it's all built on Flash. So, it does, when you have a lot of packets and it's doing a lot of analysis, unfortunately the Compass view does slow down a bit because of the Flash. That's something we're getting away from in future versions. Flash wasn't really the best way to implement it, but it's still a very flexible view, so I definitely wanted to be able to show that. So the voice and video, I opened up something that just had one call because a lot of my voice files are from the wired side of the network. This one I know I can confirm is from a wireless experiment. We did it with some of our SEs. So there's several things in voice and video. So it's in this voice and video area in that left-hand nav bar. You can see we have a calls and a media view. So in each view, what's different really about those views are what happens in the details area. So, we have the call, and now I'm still in the expert events because those are related to voice as well. But it's in this details area where things change a little bit between the calls and the media view. So if I highlight the call, you'll see that in the details area, it's listing a bunch of details kind of about the call setup, right? So, I'm looking at things like the number of packets in the call, the to and the from, the caller ID, how the call ended, right? Closed, which meant it ended normally. It was on SIP. It was using G.711 for the codec. Bit rates, start and finish time, duration of the call, the lowest mean opinion score that we saw, et cetera. So it's more of just a summary level of the call itself. The media view, what it does is it's similar, but it's not going to break the call down into each direction because the call may not follow the same path from the caller to the callee and then back. So things like mean opinion scores might be different when you analyze the call from one side or the other. So when I highlight one leg of the call here, I get additional information that's now more about the media side of the call, right? This is where a lot more of that call quality comes in. So I can see all my R factors. I can see the mean opinion scores. I can see things like jitter, packet loss, et cetera, the one-way delay, all of that about any one of the VoIP calls on my network. So, and again, as I showed you earlier from that expert event summary side, right, if I had a whole number of calls here, and I said, well, where's that low MOS happening? I click, and it would take me exactly to which call is showing me the low MOS. So I can drill in really quickly.
So you're calculating all the MOS scores on the fly based on the packets that you're obviously it's not in the packet itself.
Right. So the question was how are we calculating the MOS scores? And somebody had kind of asked that earlier, and I think I kind of glossed over that, and I'm sorry about that. So there's really two ways that we're doing this. So we actually do license libraries from a third party who's kind of an expert in kind of voice quality analysis. So in that area, we're actually doing it on the fly. If that data is not available, there are RTP control packets that are out there that do contain some information about call quality, et cetera, that are generated from the call managers. So if for some reason we can't calculate it, we can also pull it from those packets. But generally, we are calculating this stuff on the fly based on our own packet measurements for packet loss and latency and that kind of stuff.
How do you support the link in these analysis?
So in terms of link, the standard SIP parts of link that we do, but any of the proprietary parts of link we do not support today. So link is just a straight SIP protocol. We'll get things like the MOS and the other stuff, but if there's anything specific about link, then not today. But it is on the roadmap to have more complete support for link.
On the left, I see like web and voice. Did it know based on the trace and add those values dynamically? There's choices on the left.
So in terms of, he was asking about the VoIP and the wireless on the left in this layer column. Oh, so yeah, these are again just other choices in here. So those are always there. There may not be any web in this trace, and there probably isn't because it's just that one voice call. You don't see web? Oh. Web isn't the most useful view, I'll be honest with you, but it's also probably the one other thing that's missing between enterprise and pro. But I'll show you what web. I'll show you what web shows you. It's not, everything that's in that web view you can find somewhere else. It's basically almost like it's a built-in filter for web. But if you went and filtered out the web traffic, you'd see kind of the same thing. But I'll show it to you in a minute. 2 minutes, okay. So one of the other things quickly about these, I know some people like this notion, we go back to calls because we'll catch the whole thing. We can actually play back the call if you're really interested. It just starts Windows Media Player and I don't know if you can hear it, but maybe you can hear it.
Hello, this is Joe. Hey, Jim, Joe.
And that was actually from a VoIP phone, et cetera. So some people like this, and it is useful because there are times when you might see a MOS score and wonder, okay, 2.5. I don't really know what a MOS at 2.5 is, what it sounds like. You can play back the call. For the Europeans in the house, people don't like this from a privacy perspective. There may even be issues and regulations against it, and there's ways to turn this off in the registry. But so that's kind of VoIP and video real quick. The two other things I wanted to show you real quick, as I realize now I'm running out of time, was roaming. So further down in here, we had a roaming area, and we can roam to see roams by log or by node or by access point. We analyze the roaming in two different ways. So we have, and there's a checkbox where you can turn this on and off. We'll either analyze a roam from the last data packet seen from one AP to the first data packet seen on the next AP. So a real, what we consider to be user experience, data to data. You can also do it acknowledgement to acknowledgement. So the last ACK seen over here on the last access point and the first ACK seen on the next data point, even if there's no data, right after that ACK. So, and then we just make the measurements, right? You can see, again, analyze them in different ways. These are analyzed by AP, so we'll give you the average roam times, right? You can see some were really bad, half a second. Some were kind of where you might expect, 40 milliseconds, 20 milliseconds, that kind of thing. We have an overall log of them, and then you can see them by individual node as well. One last thing that I wanted to show you real quick, in terms of where it's at with AC. So just within the last week or two, back in the office, we get the Cisco AP3700 working really smoothly over the Cisco remote adapter, and we got a 3-stream media access controller. This is all just commercial kind of stuff, and started a session where we were sending traffic back and forth using that media controller, and you can see we're able to capture even the AC 3-stream traffic that's in here. We're over here in the data rate column. You can see right where we're at. The band is AC. The data rate, we fixed this now. It's 1300, not 12.999.
You're talking media controller. What do you mean by
It was just one of those Linksys devices that you could buy commercially for your house, where it's got Ethernet ports. So if you want to like attach your TV and your DVR, right, but have them communicate wirelessly over the wireless network, it's really for generating the traffic, not for capturing. So this and these are things that we just recently added, right, with adding in the data rate. We now report the number of spatial streams. The MCS value, if it's 11N or 11AC. There's a few that come with the program. There's not too many on the website, but the question was, do we have sample captures on the website? That's a good point, and especially for the AC ones, I'll add these. I'll add this one. I'll add them in Omnipeak, which is really the place to go to get that kind of stuff. Yes, yeah. Great. I think that was it. Thank you.